Every yucca has a crown. They're usually big and beautiful. Today, we're going to show you how to cut the crown off a yucca. Hi, this is Ann. Welcome to Love a Yucca. Let's get started. This is a spineless yucca, and it's actually a pup to another yucca I have that ended up having 3 pups at one time. So this one is about, I'd say 5 or 6 years old, so it's pretty big. And I want to move it in the house, but she's a little big for the house right now. So I'm going to dethrone her and cut the top off. This is called the crown. So we're going to take the crown off this yucca, and partly just to show you, I'm going to pull a couple of these off just so you can see a little better. And that doesn't hurt the yucca. I'll do the do one in the back. This doesn't hurt the yucca whatsoever. In fact, we like to do this to clean them up. Keep in mind, once you pull them off, they're not going to grow back. Although they could sprout a stem, the leaves are not going to come back. So let's start with cutting the crown off. We're going to use a couple things to do this. We're going to use a saw. We're going to use a candle. We're going to use a butter knife. I know that sounds crazy, but it's going to help the yucca not only cut it so that you stifle its growth a little bit, but you're also going to protect the stem that's left. So let's start with the gloves. I have to wear gloves because I'm rather accident prone, and we don't want me cutting off my crown instead of the yucca. So let's see here. You don't need a giant saw to do this. This is actually probably a little big for what I'm going to do. Usually when you're cutting something, you want the saw to be about twice the size of what you're cutting. This is a pretty good sharp saw, so we should get a clean cut here. I'm going to go down to about here. And the nice thing about cutting this crown off is because I have all these stems, they're actually growth from the mother plant, that it's not going to show as much when it's in my house, so that's a good thing. Now I started on this side, and the reason I did that is I don't want it to tear. So I just put a little nick in there, right there. And there we go. We have a clean cut. If you notice, it's not tearing around here, and a little bit of the outside, but it's a very clean cut, which is what we want. Now, what are we going to do with this? You can't plant it in the ground. Whenever you cut something off a yucca, you don't stick it in the ground because you want it to root first. So what I'm going to do is, just to dry it out a little bit, I'm going to let it sit a couple days in a shaded spot. I don't want it to burn up. This is spring, and I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to show you how I transplant it. So I'm going to set this aside. As I mentioned, it's spring, and you always want to do your trimming in the spring. And the reason is they're going into their growth period. So this gives them time to relax, take it easy, come back to life, overcome the injury you've just done to them, the trauma. In other words, it lets them chill and grow. So at this point, we're going to put the wax on the top of the stem. And the reason we put wax on the top, and you just use a basic candle to do this. It's a white candle, unscented, no dye. We don't want a bright red or purple candle to do this. But we want to drip wax on top of it. And that's a seal. It's called capping it. And you've probably, if you've bought a yucca at the store, and it's a pretty big one, if you've gone to a nursery, you've probably seen wax at the top. Leave it on. You don't want to take it off. It's protecting the trunk. So if we don't put this wax on, and we don't protect this trunk, then too much water is going to get in. So we have two things with water that we're talking about here. One, there's some moisture in the trunk already, and we want to protect that and keep the moisture in that's there. It's not a lot of moisture, but it's a little bit. And second, we don't want it raining on top, or when you're watering, a bunch of water to go back into it, because that could cause some rot, which is the scourge of yucca plant. It also opens it up for insect infestation. So let me get my lighter out here. Just let it light. We got a little bit of breeze. And we've got a tough candle here. There we go. There's some wax going now. You see the wax pouring down on it. It's not hurting the yucca. I mean, you would think it would, but these girls are tough. It takes a lot to hurt a yucca. People find that out when they plant them outside, and they just keep going and going and going. Now we've got a butter knife, as I mentioned to you. I'm just going to spread the wax. There we go. And we've sealed off the yucca. In a little bit, I'm going to let the yucca crown sit for a while, and then I'll show you how to plant it in a pot. Be right back. Okay, it's been a couple days, and our girl has been laying out in the shade. Well, actually in my screened-in porch where it's shady. And she's about ready to be planted. So a couple things I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a couple more of these out so she's not so top heavy. And that's easy to do, and you might have to do it if you've got a really heavy crown. There you go. So she's still a little top heavy, but we're going to go with it. Let me lay her aside. I'm using a terracotta pot. I like terracottas to start my plants in because they can breathe, the roots can breathe, and I just like them. That doesn't mean you have to stick with it as they get bigger. In fact, I have a lot of very large yuccas in plastic pots. I have some small yuccas in plastic pots. This is not a hard, fast rule. It's just how I like to start them. If you notice, there's a huge drainage hole. Love drainage holes. So one thing that yuccas are susceptible to is root rot. You cannot overwater a yucca. People say you can't kill a yucca and they're easy. You can kill a yucca. So because that hole is there and it's a big hole, I don't want the dirt to fall through, especially if I take it inside. So what I do is I use this painter's tape. You notice it's got the ridges in it, the little holes, and it's sticky on one side. So I just cut off a piece of that without cutting my finger off, and I put it in the bottom of the pot over the hole. And that'll keep the soil from falling through. Give it a little press down. Next, let me put some gloves on so I don't get horribly dirty. Anyway, this is the easy part of the whole process, and that is, and by the way, if you are interested in taking the crown off your yucca, go on my blog, Love a Yucca, and take a look at the article, Can You Take the Top Off a Yucca? You can Google that too, Can You Take the Top Off a Yucca? And you can read all about what we're talking about today. So here we go. It's a long skinny stem, as you can see, or trunk. So it's we're gonna have to really bury it good so it doesn't wobble all over the place. And here we go. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up or subscribe. I'm gonna have other videos exclusively about yuccas. One of the best plants I've ever encountered, mostly because they are difficult to kill. Not impossible, as I mentioned, but they are difficult to kill. And my green thumb is blue. So they're a little easier for me to take care of. I've had yuccas now for 20 years. You saw out there, I have some pretty large ones. And they all started very small. Okay, now I'm pressing the soil down, but I'm not smashing it down. And the reason I'm not is, I'm pressing it down to get the air pockets out, but I'm not smashing it down where it's too tight. Now we have this dish. And I'm always reticent about putting one of these on. Obviously, if you're inside, you need to put this on for to keep water from going all over your house. But make sure when you water your yucca, and we'll talk about watering in another video, that you empty the dish because you don't want their roots sitting in water. Also, if you have a yucca out in the ground, you want one of these on because they have invasive roots and they will grow through the hole. So I'm going to get some water on this girl. Once more, it doesn't cost you anything to give me a thumbs up or subscribe. There we go. Easy peasy. That's how you take the crown off a yucca. And I think she's going to do really great. I think she's going to like her new home. I think I'm going to put her on the patio and let her just enjoy the sunshine for a while, and then eventually I'll move her in. Thanks for joining me, and thumbs up if you can.